She clinked her champagne glass against mine, leaned in, and with the microphone still hot in her hand, she said it. To everyone who helped me get here. Well, almost everyone. Some of us were just along for the ride. Laughter rolled through the room like a wave. I wasn't standing tall enough to survive. I froze, smile caught halfway to my lips, my hand still raised. The projector behind her cycled through slides of her at work, boardrooms, glossy magazine spreads, photo ops with executives. No mention of me. Not a single photo. Not even a thanks to my husband on the final slide. I sat in the back corner, where she'd asked me to stay so the team could have the spotlight. My name wasn't on the program, not on the seat tags. Hell, I had to Uber myself to her big night because she took the car early to prep with the team. I'm used to fading into the background. I've always been the guy behind the curtain, the one who edits the speech, reviews the financials, fixes the Wi-Fi when it dies an hour before a launch. I've never needed credit, but I never expected to be humiliated. Not like this. Her promotion party was at a rented rooftop venue downtown. Warm lights, soft jazz, an open bar pouring cocktails with fancy herbs. Everyone was dressed like they stepped out of a tech startup's glossy investor deck, slick, clean, curated. And then there was me, button up a little too worn, wedding ring still polished, like it meant something. I watched her float across the room in that navy dress I'd helped pick out 2 weeks ago, back when she was still practicing her thank you speech in front of our mirror. Back when she still looked me in the eye. I tried to brush it off at first. Tell myself I was being sensitive. Maybe she didn't mean it that way. Maybe the jab wasn't for me. But then came the second cut. We were standing in a cluster near the buffet table, her coworkers laughing, drinks in hand. One of them, slick-haired, overconfident, I think his name was Jonah, nudged her playfully and asked, "So who's this guy again? Your brother?" The group chuckled. My wife, Mia, didn't even blink. "Oh, he's around," she said, reaching for a shrimp skewer. "Mostly moral support." Moral support. 12 years married. I left my job when we moved cross-country for hers. Took part-time gigs, freelance contracts. Covered the mortgage when her startup years paid pennies. Cooked, cleaned, managed the house, even handled her mom's medical appointments when she was too swamped at work. But to them, I was just around. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. Not after what I knew. Not with the file on my phone. See, what she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that Mia had a second life. Not just late-night Slack messages or occasional texts that made her smile a little too long. This was bigger. 3 months ago, she accidentally airdropped something to my phone. A folder labeled Backup, Private. She grabbed her phone back too quickly for me to open it right then, but she was flustered, careless. That night, I made a copy of her cloud data. I know it wasn't right, but I was tired of the cold shoulder, the secrets, the way she kept locking her phone when I walked in. And what I found? A secret account. Anonymous, of course, but not anonymous enough. Same photos she kept on her main phone. Same background art, same style of writing. It was a personal blog. Private. Members only. NSFW. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It wasn't the photos. It wasn't the comments from strangers. It was the words. She wrote about her dead marriage. About her emotionally stunted husband. About how she felt trapped, weighed down by a man who couldn't dream bigger than a lawn and a Sunday football game. She called me the anchor dragging the ship. And the worst part? Her coworkers, the ones laughing with her now, sipping wine just feet away from me, they followed her account. Some even commented. Inside jokes, emojis, fire icons. One wrote, "Your husband sounds like a sitcom character." A boring one. I recognized the username. It belonged to Jonah. That's when everything clicked. The distance. The eye rolls when I brought up ideas. The fake smiles. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her punchline. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't confront her. I watched, quietly, like I always do. I studied the room. I noticed how she kept checking her phone, how she slipped off with Jonah to the bar while someone else gave a speech in her honor. She thought I would always take it, that I'd stay silent. But I had one thing left, the truth, and a USB drive. While everyone buzzed about the surprise slideshow Mia had prepared, a little bonus presentation about our team journey, she called it, I swapped out the projector's input cable with my own laptop. No one noticed. They were too busy getting more champagne. 5 minutes later, the lights dimmed. Everyone turned toward the screen. And then the opening line of her private blog lit up the wall. Sometimes I wonder how long I can pretend to love a man who doesn't challenge me. There was silence, then murmurs. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Slide by slide, the post scrolled. Screenshots, photos, comments. Her words, not mine. Her voice, recorded, narrating one of the entries. She'd saved it to her private podcast feed, never meant for public ears. It played loud and clear. I know he means well, but he's just there, existing, like a houseplant you forget to water. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "That's her voice." I stood at the edge of the room, arms folded, chest tight, not with pride, not with vengeance, just clarity. She turned then, face drained, eyes locked on me. She whispered one word. "You didn't." I didn't answer, because this was only the beginning. Her voice didn't carry. That whisper, "You didn't." It wasn't meant for the room. But by then, the room didn't need her confirmation. The truth had already begun its slow, merciless crawl across every face in that space. I watched the ripple hit. At first, they were confused. A few thought it was some kind of edgy marketing pitch, a bold, honest storytelling strategy to show vulnerability in leadership. But then came the entry about our anniversary, the one where she wrote, "I cried in the shower that morning, not because I loved him, but because I didn't know how to tell him I didn't." No one could spin that. The room went quiet in the way only betrayal can make a room go quiet, sudden, wide-eyed, breath held between disbelief and disgust. Someone at the back, I think it was her assistant, let out a stunned, "Oh my God." I stayed rooted, arms still folded, watching her shoulders rise and fall in shallow little gasps. Mia didn't move, didn't blink. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Turn it off," she finally said, voice low and tight. No one moved. She said it louder this time. "Turn it off." As if yelling could rewind the damage. But she'd built this house. I just pulled back the curtain. The next slide was a photo. Not risque, not obscene, just heartbreaking. It was me, asleep on the couch, a pizza box on the floor, a cold pack balanced on my temple. From that week I got migraines so bad I couldn't stand. She'd taken the photo secretly. The caption read, "This is what I come home to. A life with no spark, no ambition, just stagnation in human form." There were laughs in the comments. One of her team members, Denise, head of content, had written, "He looks like a 90s sitcom dad. Poor you." That's when people started shifting, not just away from her, but toward me. Subtly, uncomfortably. They looked at her like they didn't recognize her, like she was some stranger who had hijacked the body of their friend, their boss, their girl boss idol. Jonah stepped forward. "Mia, is this some kind of joke?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. The kind of silence where you know there's no version of the truth that won't damn you. I took a step forward. Not dramatic, not theatrical. Just enough to let my presence fill the space between us. My voice was calm. Too calm, maybe, but it carried. "It's not a joke. She's been running this account for over a year. I found it by accident. Saved what I could. I wasn't going to say anything. Not until tonight." I looked around. Eyes were on me now, some sympathetic, some stunned, a few still processing. She asked me to sit in the back so I wouldn't embarrass the photos. Then she called me useless in front of all of you. And every one of you laughed. Someone near the bar muttered, "Jesus." I nodded toward the screen. But that's not what hurt the most. What hurt was reading the things she said about me when no one was watching. When she thought she was safe, unseen. That's where people tell the truth. Mia stepped forward now, desperate. "You're making this worse. We can talk about this at home. This isn't the place." The place. I almost laughed. "You made me a joke at your promotion party. You humiliated me publicly. This is the place." The slideshow stopped. I hadn't touched anything. One of the AV guys must have killed the feed. But the silence it left behind was worse. Exposed. Raw. Her boss, Richard, older guy with too much cologne and a fake laugh I'd heard too often at their work parties, cleared his throat. "We'll resume the celebration shortly," he said, but his tone had no confidence. No one clapped. No one raised a glass. Mia turned to me, her voice now cracked and human. "I didn't mean for you to see any of that. That's the problem," I said. "You never meant for me to see anything." I didn't yell. I didn't break. I just turned, slow and deliberate, and walked toward the exit. She followed me. "Please," she said, grabbing my arm just as I pushed through the door. You don't understand. I turned to face her. Not with anger. Just clarity. No, Mia. You don't understand. You built this second life like I was an obstacle. You let them mock me. You joined in. You buried everything we built under a pile of curated captions and fake empowerment. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I think, in some twisted way, she thought I'd never stand up for myself. That I'd keep playing the fool who holds the camera while she performs her life. You said I was just along for the ride? I said. Well, consider this my stop. I walked out, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. I didn't answer her calls that night, or the next morning, or the morning after that. In fact, I didn't answer anything for a while. Not the texts, not the apologies typed in bursts of guilt and panic, not the vague threats that came a few days later when the full consequences started to bloom. I let it all sit, like ashes after a fire. Cold. Silent. Mia came home that night to find our bedroom stripped of my things. Just drawers left open, hangers swinging slightly, the kind of eerie stillness that makes you realize what someone took wasn't just their clothes. It was the quiet you never appreciated until it left with them. I moved into a small Airbnb across town. Nothing dramatic. Just clean, simple, quiet. I brought only a duffel bag and the laptop that held every file I'd used to pull the curtain back. No revenge plan, no schemes. Just a man reclaiming space, and his name. What Mia didn't expect was the ripple. She thought it would blow over, that her charm would carry her, like it always did. But reputations are made of tissue paper when they're built on lies. Within a week, her blog had made the rounds. Not from me, but from whispers. Coworkers talked. Screenshots were shared. People dug deeper. And what they found wasn't just a woman venting about her husband. It was a pattern. Arrogance. Mockery. A cruelty disguised as candor. The HR department launched a quiet, internal review. Jonah was suspended pending investigation for an inappropriate relationship with a superior. Yes, turns out she was his manager on more than one project. Her boss, Richard, called me. I didn't expect that. Look, he said, voice hushed like he didn't want the walls to hear. This is messy. And I'm not saying anyone's innocent, but I need to know. Was all of it real? I didn't give him much. Just a simple, honest sentence. Every word on that screen came from her. By the end of that month, she was asked to take a leave of absence. Not fired, not officially. Just repositioned. The startup world is slippery like that. They don't like drama. Especially not when investors are watching. I heard from a mutual friend, one of the few who still reached out, that she tried to spin it. Said I hacked her. Said I twisted her words. But screenshots don't lie. Audio doesn't stutter. And shame clings louder than any denial. We met once. Just once. She asked to see me. One conversation, she said. Face to face. No yelling. Just us. It was at a cafe we used to love. The kind with uneven wooden tables and over-roasted coffee. She looked tired. Not broken. Mia never looked broken, but less polished, like the filter had slipped off her life. She didn't touch her drink. I was angry, she said. I felt invisible. Like you didn't push me to be better. I nodded. And so you call me dead weight. Online. To strangers. She looked down. I didn't know how to be honest with you. You were honest, I said. Just not to me. She wiped a tear. I don't know who I became. I used to love you so much. I know, I said. I used to love me too. We sat in silence after that. Not heavy. Not tense. Just empty. She asked if I'd ever forgive her. And I told her the truth. I already did. That night. On the rooftop. When you looked at me like I'd ruined everything. And I realized you'd been the one breaking things all along. That was the night I let it all go. She nodded slowly. Not accepting it. Not resisting. Just hearing it. We signed the divorce papers 3 weeks later. No fight. No back and forth. We split the assets evenly. I didn't want more. I just wanted clean. She kept the house. I took the savings. Fair, given what we'd built. Or what I'd helped her build while she told the internet I was a houseplant with legs. And then, one night, I stood on the same rooftop. Not for a party. Just to look out over the city. The wind tugged at my jacket. The lights below blinked like stars that had forgotten how to rise. I thought about the man I used to be, the quiet one, the background support, the moral presence. She thought I was useless. But the truth is, she mistook humility for weakness. Silence for absence. Love for lack of ambition. I was never useless. I was the reason she could climb without worrying about falling. And now she knows what falling feels like. And me? I'm not flying, but I'm finally standing tall.